Started.
Okay.
Hello everyone, my name is Terai Koronui. I'm the founder of Love from Inside Out, and I share my insights to empower people so that they feel loved, let go of unloving experiences, and also have the courage to make the necessary changes they need so that they can start living the life that they truly love, which includes having loving and more conscious relationships and a life, a purposeful life. Today, I'm interviewing one of my favourite people, and she's also a friend of mine. Tiziana Stupia has just accomplished what most of us want to do, and that's to write a book. Currently, it's the book that she's written is this wonderful one called Meeting Shiva, and it's about. Can you see it properly?
Yes.
It's about a spiritual journey where she encounters a monk in in the Himalayas, and this was only part of I guess the entail of a journey that Tiziana had been on for a couple of years. So without any further ado, I'd love to introduce Tiziana, who is right now in Germany. Hi, Tiziana.
Hello, Terai.
Hi, it's been a little while since we last saw, but we met about 18 months or 2 years ago here in Toowoomba, Australia. And at that time, you were still in the editing phase of the book, and it was just incredible that, well, you're an incredible person, so I expected it to be finished anyway, but it's an incredible book. Can you share with the audience about this book?
Yeah, Meeting Shiva is the story of a stay that I had in the Indian Himalayas in 2008. It's really a book about a relationship, a very unusual relationship I had in India with a Hindu monk that I encountered in a remote ashram in the Himalayas as I was traveling through. I started to teach English in that ashram, and despite all of our best intentions, we got involved in a very intense, intimate relationship. And this relationship really shattered all my beliefs, everything that I ever held true about love. And it really woke me up. It was a very difficult, a very excruciating relationship amongst all of the other obstacles that were in the way, the secrecy in which we had to conduct the relationship, and a lot of dark things that kind of went on behind closed doors as well in the relationship. And ultimately, it just showed me some very uncomfortable truths about myself, about religious institutions, about my partner at the time. But really, at the end of the day, it was all about me, my own transformation and my own healing. And that's really what led me to write the book.
That's true. You say that prior to traveling and meeting Rudra, the monk, that you had some relationships, some not very good relationships, and you saw some negative patterns in these relationships that you had been trying to work through. What were these? I mean, just to give a brief description of what you saw these negative patterns were, and what was your learnings from as a result of this massive relationship you had.
Well, my main pattern in relationships was always the unavailable man. And really, I have been in quite a lot of relationships in my adult life, and I ended every single relationship in my life because I was bored, because it was too difficult, there was always something wrong with the other person. So that kind of was my pattern. I fell in love with a lot of unavailable men. I mean, all sorts, gay men and married men. And it was long distance relationships, anything that would make me feel safe, where I didn't truly have to be intimate, But it was always the other person's fault. Never had anything to do with me, of course,
And then when you encountered Rudra, can you explain what kind of a monk he was? So, which makes it, I mean, who's the most unavailable person in the world apart from the Pope, really? Is
really? Yeah.
Type of monk.
Yes, yes. And that was kind of the epitome of a long line of unavailable men. To be honest, I never thought a relationship would develop between us. I did find him attractive when I first met him, but I just didn't think it would be possible. I mean, here he was a monk who'd been a monk for like almost a decade under the vow of celibacy. So I just never dreamt that this would ever happen. But it did, and it happened for a reason, because it changed everything for me.
Yeah, I think one of my first questions was, what was your definition of a relationship or of love prior to having this, meeting this man, and then, you know, after the affair that ensued, what what do you define love as now?
Well, before I was in the relationship with him, I had this whole idea about there is the one out there, this one magical person who will make everything come all right and help me to have a happy, fulfilled relationship. Somehow I felt I hadn't met my match. There was somebody out there who could maybe, well, I don't want to say save me, but somebody who would be perfect for me and could make it all right. Also, my definition of relationships was really quite self-centered in the way of, well, I give you that if you give me this. It was more like a transactional thing, and I think that's pretty normal in society. We all want to get something out of loving relationships, and vice versa. After the relationship, I recognized really that love, first and foremost, is freedom. Um, Freedom to support the other person to be all they can be, to help them to live the life of their dreams and to become all they can be. So that really is the thing that has changed for me, that love is free of all conditions and, yeah, is unconditional.
I mean, I spend, you know, an hour and a half reading it, and I don't want to put it down. So how was it for you to write it? Because I met you while you were still editing the book or in the final stages, and you had to cut out quite a few words, number of words. So it must have the flow for writing this book must have, you know, just been really natural for you.
Mm. It was quite a long process, because I first of all didn't really want to write the book. It was
Oh.
just, I came back from India and it was such an enormity of what had happened, like, personal transformation, the loss of this this man who I believed to be my soulmate, and there was all this stuff in me and all this healing that was going on. And I really didn't want to write this book, so I left it for a year until I came back. But throughout that whole year, I kept getting message after message from the universe that I had to write this book. Like books with a similar subject matter came into my hands, and comments, and it was just so much that was going on. So after a year, I was like, oh, okay, I'm going to start writing it. And it was actually a very therapeutic process because I still had there was so much learning that, I was really highly pregnant with all of this stuff. And I just really wanted to share that with the world, and particularly what I had learned and what I was continuing to learn about relationship. I think that was really the reason for me to write this book, to share my insights about, because I had been so unhappy for a lot of my life with my intimate relationships, and to see that there was a way out of this and that I could actually live in a very different way was very liberating for me. And I thought, well, why doesn't everyone know that? How come we don't know this as a society? So that's why I decided to write the book. But the process, it was hard, Terai. I'm not going to lie to you. It was hard to write this book. Not only because it was personal, but it's just sitting at your desk every single day for hours and hours, editing and rewriting, and then your publisher will come in and say, well, no, this is crap, you're going to have to rewrite this again. And so there was a lot of that, and I was really near despairing a lot of the time, especially when I met you in Toowoomba. I was like, what, I'm still working on this book. But in the end, it was all worth it. It was a hard trek, and to anyone who's writing a book, I have to say, inspiration is only part of the story. There's a whole lot of discipline that goes into it as well.
You just said that you picked up quite a few books which were very similar, but what was it missing in those books that you knew you had the answer to, or it was missing that other people needed to know? What was your message in writing this book to the world?
Well, what I found was missing in all of the other books that I had read with a similar subject matter was the healing part. Like, for example, like I read the book Eat, Pray, Love, and quite a few people compared my book in a kind of very broad way to Eat, Pray, Love. And I love that book. I think it's a really beautiful book. And she does talk about the healing work she has done in the course of her life. But when she finally meets the man she then got married to, I was still left with a few questions. Well, how exactly did she heal whatever it was that kept her from having that relationship before? And some of the other books as well, like I remember one book that I really enjoyed called An Indian Attachment by Sarah Lloyd, which is all about the author's relationship with an Indian man in a small village. And it was very interesting to me just to read the descriptions of the relationship. But again, there was no resolution. She kind of went back to England and he stayed in India. But what had she learned from it? I think for me that was the most important part of writing the book, was the resolution. Well, what did I learn? How did it change my life, and how can it change other people's lives?
How did it change your life? How has it changed your life? And when I ask you this question, I know that our lives change and our thinking changes and our distinctions change. I mean, it might be one thing now when you give me the answer, and I know in a year's time, 2 years' time, it could be a completely different thing. So what do you think now you go into your life armed with the knowledge that you have right now? What is it that's opened you up to being more freer than you ever felt before?
Well, it was just processing all the trauma that I was carrying around with me, because it is excruciatingly hard to face our demons, because a lot of us, probably all of us, we know there is some stuff in our unconscious that we haven't really faced or dealt with. And it's easier to just carry on as normal and live maybe not so satisfying relationships or not so fulfilling lives because this stuff is holding us back. To actually go into this whole trauma resolution is really scary, and it's tough and it hurts. I'm not going to lie about that. But when you do that and you go through it and you resolve it, it's so liberating. And it just opens up a whole new way of life, of authenticity and of joy and of bliss and of freedom. I mean, of course, there's always going to be difficulties in life, but I look at difficulties in a very different way now. I see them as blessings, as my friends. Things don't knock me as they used to now because I've recognized there is a message in every difficult encounter. And if I don't lose that message, the outcome can be really wonderful.
It is. So do you, where can people get hold of the book? Those who won't win it after listening to this interview and making a wonderful comment. We'll judge who will get the book after your comments. Where can people purchase the book? And I'd like to say that it's a very easy to read book. It's a very intelligent subject, intelligently written, but very easy to read. Just hard to put it down, actually. So where can they get the book?
Well, they can get in Australia, they can get the book on Fish Pond, which I believe is your equivalent of Amazon. And in the rest of the world, Amazon UK and Amazon US and Amazon Germany, like all the big internet shops, carry the book. I also believe that some of the independent bookstores have it, but I wouldn't know which one of them. But it's very easy to get hold of online.
Tiziana, I know when I first met you, you're called the Traveling Priestess, and you also have a blog. Would you like to mention that, and also how you met your, the relationship, the man that you met and went to England with? You met him via your blog as well. If you'd like to mention that.
Yes. So I was writing a blog. I no longer write it, but it's still online, called Traveling Priestess. And I can send you the link later on. It's probably too long to mention online. But if you Google Traveling Priestess, you'll find that blog as well. And that's really just a blog of all 6 years of travel throughout the world and throughout Asia and India. So there's a lot of articles on this blog. Through this blog, I also met my ex-partner who lived in Toowoomba in Australia, which is where I met you, Terai.
That's where we met.
This is how we met. It's very true. So he was a man from India who was a reader of my blog, and through my blog we became friends. And while we were friends for about 3 years online. He moved to Australia because he was working there, and he somehow ended up in Toowoomba. And when we finally decided to meet, I came to Australia, i.e. Toowoomba, and lived there for about 6 months. And in the course of living there, this is where I met you and spent some lovely times with you in the small town of Toowoomba in Queensland.
Yes. And I would have to say that you're completing the book. I mean, being in the process of listening to you writing the book, and how at times you got frustrated, and how I think you said, oh, I've written how many words, 50,000 or something words, and you had to cut back about 10 or 20,000 of it all. I'm going like, it seemed really crazy, but it inspired me too. And I'm 3/4 of the way through my book, Single, Not Desperate.
Yeah.
Looking at about healing and empowering yourself and getting over relationship breakup, because I find that through my work, a lot of people hold themselves back from life in general, from being happy, from even making, from trying different things and enjoying life, doing the things that they love, because they feel so hard done by, or that they're still hurting from things that they haven't actually let go or worked through. So talking to you about this, and how you've made an adventure out of healing, and I think that's a really good message to everybody. Life is a journey. Life is about an adventure, and hey, we have some hard times. It's terrible, but it's there's so many good things that we can take from it. Well, we don't have a choice. We're living, so we may as well. We're alive. We may as well live. Do you have any other parting words of wisdom?
Yeah, well, I just found what you said just right now quite interesting about how you're writing your book about relationship breakups and how you got over them. And I think that's an essential part to not forget, that it does take time and it's never easy to break up with somebody. But if we can turn it into something creative, like writing a book or anything really, I think then it can become a really wonderful, rewarding journey. We must never lose the message, and we also mustn't lose the pain, because the pain is really important in it as well, because often we're so much wanting to run away from the pain, and I think it's important that we don't, and that we really process it, because only then can we live life to the full, when we feel the pain and the joy and the pleasure and the displeasure. It's all part of it, isn't it, really? So,
Yes.
yeah.
So I know that you were in England to launch your book, or well, you've been living there for the last 6 months, because you have also been back to India. I know that, and now you're in Germany. So what's the next part of the journey for Tiziana?
Well, I'm going to India on Saturday, and I'm going to stay in India probably for 5 months. And I'm just going to focus on my spiritual practice, on my yoga, meeting with my spiritual teachers. So I'm quite excited about that. And after that, I'm thinking about writing a second book about my spiritual journey, after some of this PR business with Meeting Shiva has died down a little bit, because at the moment I'm quite busy doing that. But yeah, and also when I come back from India, it's been my dream for the past 8, 9 years to set up an eco community in nature, a little yoga community where people can live in the way that they truly want to live, doing what they love, living in tune with nature, eating good food, doing yoga, meditation. Because I've always had a dissatisfaction with how we live in the modern world now. And I feel now it's time to change that and do something how I really, really want to live. And this is what's going to happen next year.
Well, that sounds amazing and absolutely beautiful. And what comes to mind to me right now is the fact that you've travelled and lived in so many ashrams. I mean, you've been at various retreats here in Australia as well, and in Melbourne, Brisbane, the Byron Bay, various places. So it's kind of it would be beautiful to see you set your own place or haven for other people to enjoy. And I'm sure, knowing you, it will definitely get off the ground, if not be very prosperous. Thank you for
Mm.
sharing with us.
Thank you,
And
Terai.
I look forward to interviewing you again, in 6 months' time, in a year. Give me a call and let me know what you're up to and your new learnings to share with others.
I will do, Terai.
Thank you.